Welcome back, Tribe. I have an episode here from Diary of a CEO. We got some feminists versus non-feminists, and they're talking about the manosphere and tradwives. Let's get into it.
Manosphere talk. I found this graph as well, which just shows the sort of explosion in people searching tradwife, which means traditional wife.
Yeah.
And it seems from 2024, there's been this real explosion in people search this trend. And you said something a second ago, Erica, about young boys in particular being more vulnerable, I think were your words, than the young girls that you're seeing.
Yeah.
So how do these ideas come together to and also link in and parlay into this word manosphere? Because this subject of manosphere has been at the very forefront of conversation.
Everything's a little out of balance. Everything's a little out of whack. So it was out of whack in the 50s. And so we fixed it. And now it's out of whack in a different way. We went from the patriarchy of men dominating women to now we have the patriarchy of women dominating men. I mean, what we need to do is not go back, but come to the middle. We need to, it just makes common sense.
How are we dominating men, though?
Oh, my goodness. 60% of college students are women and graduate students.
That's not us dominating men, though.
Well, let me finish. Young men are afraid of women and the power they have over them to accuse. No, it's true. In universities, it's a real thing. I know because I have two sons. And, there is, again, the correction was necessary. We needed to course correct in society, absolutely. But we've gone so far. So the men were powerful and the women weren't. So the women said, give us some power. So now the women took the power and now the men feel powerless. You need a society that's balanced. It needs to be balanced. And the idea was that where we wanted to go, and the truth is that all movements often go to extremes. The women's movement, those women had to go to extremes because to change society, you have to do that, right?
So should some women not go to university? Is that what you're saying?
No, but actually, I think there needs to be a balance in society of men and women. If we say that...
I hate it when women argue like this. She's not hearing anything this other one is saying, which is the non-feminist. She's saying we've overcorrected on feminism. They needed to be extreme in the beginning in order to usher in change in a very rigid system. They succeeded, but then they overshot, just like every other movement before it has overshot and after it has overshot since then, including the manosphere, including, any other LGBTQ and trans rights, and everybody overshoots because the messaging becomes normalized and then it must be kept at the forefront of society's brain by, further radicalizing and demanding more change and more rights and more, and it never ends. People are never satisfied with the progress they've made. They're asking for more, which always turns out to be more radical at the tail end of everything. But this one in the red, the feminist who wants girls to open up their bodies to the world, to basically become OnlyFans prostitutes, to be hypersexualized, to try to beat men at the corporate struggle, to work until their fucking fingernails are down to the bone, to be a man essentially in every way counter to the feminine power, because she herself doesn't have any feminine aura, as you could tell, and clearly does not keep up with her body, is a bit overweight. Every feminist that's always arguing against traditional feminine qualities never looks feminine themselves, always has a chip on their shoulder because they were forced to compete with men from an early age because, men didn't hold the door open for her or do all the things that Stacy got, all the benefits from being naturally beautiful, which is men tripping up over themselves to provide value. Do your homework, hold the door open, pay for dinner, all this stuff. This is where the feminine mentality kind of metastasizes in a woman, and it's typically the uglier ones. So, okay, fine. What you need to understand is when these kinds of women are arguing, for them it's a zero-sum game. The argument is always, but what are you saying? Women should not go to college? What are you saying? Women should just be housewives? What are you saying? We should be baby-making machines? They're always taking it to the extreme. That's not a genuine argument. They're just trying to shut it down with a very extreme version of, it's disingenuous is what you could describe their way of arguing or countering somebody's points. They can't admit that, hey, maybe this part of the ideology has gotten out of control, or, hey, we've overcorrected, boys are now suffering. They can't admit that boys are suffering. They can't admit that women are now lonelier because they don't have men, or that men are now lonelier as well because they don't have women, or that we're headed for a population collapse because of the disconnect between the sexes. She can't admit that there are faults with the ideology that has caused far wide-reaching issues within society that doesn't just affect men, because the negative aspects on men are now spilled over into women's lives. Hypersexualization and dating culture and hookup culture, all this stuff makes women miserable, and the top 10% men happy as can be. No more marriages. Women want to be married and have kids and be with a man in the Disney happily ever after. Now men don't believe in that anymore. Men are starting to realize that marriage is a trap, that women don't value the vows they make during marriage, and that for them it's just a joke. Men don't want to be chivalrous anymore. Men don't want to open doors, want to pay for dates, want to take care of a woman, because women aren't worth taking care of, because feminine overshot and made women super masculine. But watch just how she argues everything. Watch.
We are going to be like Amazon women and not need men anymore. The truth is that the way it works is that by the research is that women will marry at their educational level or above, and men will marry at their educational level or below. That means that because we have fewer men in college and graduate school, women are not finding partners.
I'm just going to jump in there and talk about a report that came out in 2025, which sent shockwaves across the UK. It was called the Lost Boys Report. I think we might have talked about this in a previous episode, but it was a report by the Centre of Social Justice, which highlighted how many young men are now struggling in school, facing increased mental health problems and lacking positive role models, leaving them lost and isolated. And as a result, they suggested that many of them are turning to what we call the manosphere. And to give a definition to the manosphere, because I didn't actually know what it was, the definition I have from Cambridge Dictionary is manosphere includes websites and discussion groups focused on men's rights, which often oppose feminism in some way. And just to give a sort of a top line look at some of the stats around this, by age 5, 25% of boys in the UK are falling behind in language communication skills compared to just 14% of women. Yeah. At GCSE level, boys' results are on average half a grade lower than girls. The same applies for mental health and wellbeing. Obviously, we know about the suicide rates in young men, with nearly 3.5 times higher than those of young women. Eating disorders have risen as well in young men. And from an employment perspective, as of late 2024, 15.1% of men aged 16 to 24 were not in education, compared to 11% of women, which equates in the UK to about 550,000 men. And lastly, young women are between the age of 16 and 24 now earn nearly 10% more than their male peers, reversing the traditional gender pay gap in this age group. And I could go on and on and on. Specifically, the things that I've kind of not talked about are just how family dynamics have changed. And by age 14, nearly half of firstborn children do not live with both natural parents compared to 1970. And this was really shocking, and I think it really rose an argument which I saw play out in. I saw the Sunday Times do a big piece about it. I saw it on LinkedIn, which is what is going on here, and is this a clue as to why we now have this term manosphere?
It's a reaction. Manosphere is a reaction to the pendulum swinging too far. The pendulum needed to swing, for sure.
I slightly disagree. So I think I spoke at the beginning about the sexual revolution being two things. So one is the ideological thing, which we've spoken about quite a lot, and the other is the material changes, which no one designed really. Like, this wasn't coordinated by anyone. This just happened. This is just how technology goes. And I think in general that history should best be understood as technology, with everything else kind of running along in its wake, including ideology. I actually think a massive thing that's going on with young men, it's not actually feminism that has messed them up. It's actually technology and economics. So it's that one of the most consequential things of the 20th century and before, this is really Industrial Revolution onwards, is male strength became less important economically. Blue collar work is less valuable than it used to be. It's less available than it used to be. It turns out, America was saying that girls predominate at universities. Girls actually tend to be better suited to a lot.
I agree, but there's a little twist there, a tinge that she's missing. The nuance is that feminism immediately doubled the workforce, which suppressed wages, which made it harder for men to provide for families. Yes, that increased competition, but the competition was also elevated based on false premises like DEI or women's empowerment. You know, the boardrooms have to have half women, or the boardrooms need to bring up more women, or corporations had to become more feminine, right? You had to hire more female workers to even out the pot. So it wasn't merit-based. It wasn't like the women that went into the workforce and got these jobs above men were any better than the men. They just passed men over in order to appease the optics of what we were going for, which is an egalitarian society. Most of these women suck at these jobs. This is the brutal truth. Most of these women are in babysat jobs today. It's like a adult playground to keep them employed. Most of these jobs can be absolutely wiped away by AI. And I would garner to guess, and I've said this before, that in the future, in the next 5 years, women will be most affected by AI automation. Those mid-level to lower-level jobs are predominantly held by women in these corporations that are just useless jobs, that a Zoom call, emails, Excel sheets, absolute garbage that could be taken over by an AI. The paper pushing, thumb cackling, all that stuff done on the keyboard and little spreadsheeting and emailing and all this stuff is going to get wiped away. Vast majority of women hold those jobs. Vast majority of those jobs are not needed. They're only created and they only exist because, hey, we got to employ more women or else we're going to be penalized. We look like we're only hiring men. We got to be more diverse. We need some diverse women in here too. Throw that in there, not just women, but throw some diversity in there too. This is our system. It's not merit-based. It's based on an arbitrary set of rules that were instituted by very feminine figures and feminism. That's what was ushered in. So yes, feminism exacerbated the economic issues and exacerbated the social issues and employment as well that she's talking about. That's the nuance, but they won't say that. They'll just say, strength is no longer relevant today. Like, we don't need ditch diggers. We got machines that can scoop out fucking tons of weight in one scoop. Of course, duh. Yes, we've mechanized a lot of the hard labor that men used to do manually, but that doesn't explain why for every 10 men working with mechanized machines, you have 30 women in the back office being fucking useless for a company. That you got now what used to be jobs for old men that put in 20, 30 years and destroyed their backs, their bodies on hard work. The sign holders for construction companies are now women. Have you noticed that? When you drive by the useless jobs, the sign holder for stop and go are now all women. Those used to be the jobs of the old head. The guy that was 65 with a few more years to retire probably and be done. He put in 30, 40 years of work. He had knowledge, wisdom. He used to teach the young guys that were young, virile, strong, ready to go and work and do all the hard labor and shit that the old man can't do anymore. He used to teach them things that he learned 20, 30 years on the job. Now you have a useless woman who didn't even earn the right to hold the sign, now employed because that company needs to hire more women. Legally is obliged to. They won't talk about these little things that we have to notice in society. Same shit with the police forces, with firefighters. Why are there women cops? It's a fucking joke. Women cannot enforce the law. Women are not enforcers of violence. They cannot force any man to do anything. They need backup. Oftentimes they're getting their guns taken off of them. The men are resisting arrest, knocking them out, sometimes killing them, or they're getting their partners killed because they're useless for backup. Women don't have the same relationship with physical violence and enforcement as men do, so they don't understand how to physically enforce and delve out violence like a man does. Same shit with firefighters. If you're a 200-pound man, do you want a 5'6" woman to try to drag you out of a burning building? Seriously? Do you want a 5'6" woman to try to kick a door down? Can we stop? We are not the same. Men and women are vastly different and we complement each other. There's things women do better than men, and there are things men do better, and we should never, ever cross just to maintain the optics of equality. We're not equal. We're equal under the law, but we are not equal in capability. Not even close. This is why we split men and female sports, male-female sports. That's why, because we're not equal at all physically. So when you have a physically demanding job or a potentially violent job, on top of it being physically demanding, say like a cop, firefighter, soldier, women should be banned from those jobs. And fuck it, I won't even say banned. Fine, I'll retract that statement. I'll say the standards applied to men, which must be raised anyway. Our firefighters and our cops must have higher standards. It's a joke that you could be a fat cop today. So let's just up the standards dramatically so that we get only the best men in those jobs that are high risk and lives are at stake. And if any woman can meet those standards as the quality men do, you're in then. Fine. If you are some 6'6", butch, lesbian looking, you got some like Thor level genes and you're a chick and you're a thoroughbred with legs that look like a horse's and shit, and you wanted to be a cop or a firefighter, I'm not stopping you. Clearly, you're physically built for this kind of job. You're genetically predisposed to succeed in this physical level work. But most women are small and dainty and got their nails done, and they don't even have the psychology for violence, or the personality for this kind of job. It just doesn't. What are we doing here? So are there some women that would succeed at being a firefighter? Yes, dude, but that's like 1 in hundreds of thousands, as opposed to 1 in every 5 men would do fine as a firefighter. We're built different, but forcing normal people, normal women into jobs that they're just not built for does not work.
Sort of work which has flourished in this era, so say service sector work or working in education and things like that, there's basically been a boom in areas of life which are better suited to women professionally, and the opposite has happened with men. And I really think that a lot of what's going on with men, say, turning to the manosphere, is this feeling of being economically devalued. And there are feminists who cheer that on, but that's not basically, that pretty much has actually nothing to do with ideology. It's actually to do with just much bigger changes in the world. And we should
Yeah. It's really hard for women to argue the full truth because they stand to lose the most. So that's it. We'll leave it here because I want to watch more and more pieces of this, and we'll just break down and do commentary on pieces of this stuff. They talk about everything, though: pornography, masculine virtues, evolutionary differences. I mean, we watched a piece of it already, but we'll watch more. Anyways, appreciate everybody that's in the private community and join us on the calls. Welcome to all the new members. Appreciate everybody I don't even have my hat, has been buying hats, apparel, clothes like that, the bug sandwich shirts, all that stuff. It supports the channel directly. So thank you guys. And as usual, appreciate you for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care of yourselves.